Okay, this is April 25th, Wednesday, and it is the daily money making setups for processtrading.com using the Right Edge trading system. We're going to go over 4 trade setups today with a high probability of success, and they all did succeed very well. And 4 of them are going to be trend trades, and 1 of them is going to be a discretionary trade. Now, as you know from previous videos, the process trading Right Edge system uses 2 types of trades: trend trades, which conform to the upper half parameters of the chart, and then discretionary trades, which are found and taken by using the discretion indicators on the lower half of the chart. Since we're taking 4 trend trades, going to go over the rules of that very quickly here. On the process trading type system, for a trend trade, you can go long or you can go short. To go long, the process trading VWAP line has to be yellow, and to go short, the process trading VWAP line has to be gray. If it's gray and you're going to go short, it has to be preceded somewhere with a red segment. If you're going to go long, there has to be a green segment within the bar that gives you the indication. So that's the basic premise. And then corresponding with the process trading VWAP line are the timing alerts. The timing alerts are the dots that are above or below the price bars. In order to take a short trade, once the VWAP is gray and you had the red indication, then you can take a short trade anywhere there is a price timing alert above the price bars. So here, 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 here. And just the opposite, if you're going to go long, you can take a long trade if the process trading VWAP is yellow and the timing alert dots are below the price bars. So that would be like here, here, and here. Now, you have to employ the specific process trading trade management techniques to take these trades. The whole reason for using the process trading trade management techniques is that it has you trade by buying into strength and selling into weakness. And when you think about it, that's what you do when you trade with the trend. So it basically is having you trade with the trend, and that is why the trend trades are in the upper half and the discretionary trades are in the lower half. However, the discretionary indicators are very powerful for confirming and finding evidence to support the trend trade. So let's look at today's trades now. Here we see that the process trading VWAP was gray and we had a red segment. So that combination allows us to take a short trade wherever there is a price bar or a timing alert dot above the price bar. And we find that right here. Now, according to the trade management technique, you find the price bar with the timing alert dot to above the bar, and then you look to the low of that bar. In this case, it was 26.2150. You then place your trade 2 points below the low of that bar. In this case, it would be 1950. And that would get you in right about here. And you can see the effect of selling into weakness. Then if you stayed into it down to this point here, and I will go over reasons for that in a little bit when I explain the trade itself, then that would have been a 12-point gain, or that would have been down to 26.12, which would be a 9.5-point gain. So let's look at the reasoning for that trade. First of all, the reasoning is that it is a trend trade. You are trading with a trend, and you're using the correct management, trade management techniques and employing the proper signals. So you're going short here. Now, when you get down to the energy, which is internal energy, you can see that it has turned gray right over in this area, and that indicates weakness is coming in. And then it broke through the histogram to the downside, which is selling pressure, which is indicated by the red. Next, we have the sentiment oscillator. And if we look at that, the sentiment oscillator has a static high boundary, a static low boundary, and a static mid boundary. The important parts of this oscillator are the momentum line, the tricolored momentum line, and then the sentiment line itself. That's this dashed yellow line. The sentiment line, it is very important to note where it is within the oscillator and what the slope is and what its relationship is in conjunction with the momentum. So when we look at this trade where we're taking our first trend trade and we're taking it to the short side, we look down at the sentiment oscillator. We see the slope is itself trending down. Not only is it trending down, but it's crossing the midline. That's within this rectangle here. It's crossing the midline, which is a sure sign of weakness. We see that the momentum has already crossed through and went below the lower bounds. As well, the short-term trend oscillator has crossed the pullback line and hit the lower bound and actually starting to go below it. So just as it should, all the discretionary indicators confirm that this is a high probability setup for the trend trade. Now, almost 100% every time the discretionary indicators will tell the underlying story or the rest of the story behind the trend trade. It'll give you the particulars and the details to the trend trade as far as the energy and the momentum and the trend, etc. But the plain and simple fact is, if you did not have the discretionary signals, you can trade with the trend simply by employing the correct rules to the process trading right edge system and looking at the indicators of the process trading VWAP, the timing alert dot, and then employing the trade management. Okay, so in this case, it would have been good for 9.5 points. Our next trade is a discretionary trade. The discretionary trade employs the three indicators to the bottom of the chart, which are, again, the energy indicator, the internal energy, the sentiment oscillator, and this oscillator, the nature of it is for the sentiment to go from the high to the, high to the low, back to the high. So when we look at this point, we see here that there's a specific indication, I won't get into that right now, of a particular dot that is indicating a likely strength to the upside here. When we look to the energy, we see that the energy is negative, and then at this point right here, we see it starting the negative energy is starting to wane and it's starting to head positive. The energy indicator has two other signals to it, which are the yellow underscore here, and then it has red underscores. The red underscores indicate a sign of weakness, and the yellow underscores indicate a sign of strength. So even though the internal energy is negative, it's starting to trend positive, it's losing its negativity, and it has a sign for going positive. At the same time, we see on the sentiment oscillator that the sentiment has gone all the way down to the bottom of the oscillator, and now the momentum is crossing through the bottom and crossing through the sentiment oscillator. That's a very powerful sign. And then when we look down to the short-term trend oscillator, it also is cutting up through the bottom of the oscillator. So these three signs here allow you to take along with that particular dot, allow you to take the discretionary trade. In the discretionary trade, it is at your discretion as to entries and exits. But let's say we entered at the high of this bar where it is. So that would be 21.15. We'll just assume that we got our worst possible fill, which was at 21.15, and that was the high of that bar. And then, because it's a contrarian trade going against the trend, we're going long, and the trend is down. So we would be taking this more as a scalp trade. And a scalp trade is basically 1 or 2 points. But if we did not take it for a scalp trade, then we would have got out somewhere in this area here, and that would have been around 1975, and that would have been another 4 3/4 points. So it is these signals down here that allowed us to take the discretionary trade. The discretionary trades are much shorter trades, and we try to employ more of our scalping technique in taking profits on them. So now we've done a trend trade and a discretionary trade. In this video, I'm not going to go over so much as to how this helps you in determining how to stay out of this whipsaw action. But if you weren't able to interpret this, the sentiment oscillator, to stay out of that whipsaw action, then the trade management itself technique would keep you out of these. Because if you traded here and you had to go 2 points below, it wouldn't have got you into that trade. Same here, it wouldn't have got you into that trade here. So the trade management technique keeps you out of trades that are lower probability, even though they meet the criteria of being above the timing alerts, being above the price bars. Also, when you're doing this, if you were going to take these trades, again, these would be to the short side, and you'd be looking down at the discretionary indicators, and you can see that the sentiment is headed up, the momentum is headed up, the short-term trend is headed up. So even though classically you would be able to take that trade or put your trade in, you'd have to put it down here and you wouldn't get filled anyway. But the other point is that by interpreting the system, seeing that there is positive energy coming in, you're not going to take that trade because all your discretionary indicators don't confirm it. Over here, we were able to take a short trade. All our discretionary indicators said, yes, those would be a good trade. Over here and over here, no, you're bucking the system. And it shows you right here that those are not the high probability trades. So let's go over to our next trend trade, which is right in this area here. Now, why can we take that? Because we have the process trading of a yellow VWAP with a green indication. And in that case, we can take the timing alert dots that are below the price bars, such as right here. And this particular price at the low or at the high of this bar, so you go at the high of the bar, the trade management would tell you to take the high of the bar right above the price dot. In this case, is 2028. You'd place your trade 2 points above it, so that would be 28.30. So you get in somewhere around here, and that trade would take you up to this area, which would be another 4 points of gain. So let's see what our discretionary indicators tell us. We're going to take this as a long trade. The energy tells us that the energy is weak to it. The energy used all of its energy in this move here, in this up move right here. So now the energy came out of it, but the energy came out of it didn't even get back to the VWAP line, which also acts as support and resistance, and it went all the way below the lower bound of the sentiment oscillator, while the sentiment itself stayed in the upper half of the oscillator, meaning that the sentiment is still strong to the upside. The momentum, kind of like a temporary thing, went all the way down below, okay, and now it's going back up, and we see on the energy a red or a yellow indication right here of strength coming in. We also see the short-term trend oscillator is hugging the upper bound here. It's well above the pullback line. So these three indications will help support your taking the trend trade. But again, you don't need these to take the trend trade. You just have to follow the trade management rules. And in this case, if you did that, it would be good for 4 points. The next setup that we'll talk about is right over here. Again, yellow VWAP. So we're going to take a long trade. We're going to find a dot. There's a timing alert dot right on the VWAP line here. The high of that bar is 26.50. So we're going to get in at 28.50, and this price goes up to 36.50. So on this particular trade, you would have made 8 points. Again, we look at our discretionary indicators. When we look down, we see that the energy right at this point is just starting to turn green. So it was weak, and there was a little bit of negativity, not overpowering by any means negativity. And in fact, now it's starting to turn green again, which is positive energy. We have the same scenario as we had before, with this very little energy drove the momentum all the way below the lower bound, just as it did over here. And now it's coming up through the upper bound, just the same, and it's crossing the sentiment, the momentum line is crossing the sentiment line just the same. So, and the short-term trend oscillator is also starting to head up at this point. So again, the discretionary indicators help provide evidence and confirmation to take our long-term trade according to the trend trading techniques. Lastly, we do the same trade over here. So whereas this trade over here made 8 points, this trade here makes 10.5 points. That's because it's at 26.32. That means we get in at 26.34. which is right over here. And this goes up to 40.25. That'd be about 10 and a quarter points. And again, I'll let you go ahead and look at the discretionary indicators and interpret them for yourselves. But the beauty about using this process trading right edge system is at some point when you see these, this is the right edge and this is the right edge. But now you know what's going to happen as that right edge progresses into the chart. So that's it for the setups for today, April 25th. If you like what you see, I hope you subscribe and head on over to processtrading.com and check that out and see more of what the system's all about. And until the next video, hope all your tradings are successful.